Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go!
Thanks for checking out another installment of the Ballsy Uncut podcast. You see the Our Balls Are Bigger shirt over my shoulder. That, of course, is our post-game show. I had some people texting me after the Rider-Bomber game. Do you got a show today? No, we're going to start in the regular season when the Riders open against Ottawa. I was actually in Winnipeg for the game, and that's kind of where I want to start right now. It was an out-of-body experience almost. In a million years, if you told 6-year-old Michael Ball he would be at a Blue Bomber game against the Riders wearing a Blue Bomber t-shirt, of which I bought 2, I would have said, you banged your head, you're crazy. I'll never do that. Never say never, and life can take a bunch of different twists. Of course, I'm a football dad, first and foremost, so blood trumps your allegiance to the team you grew up loving, the Rough Riders. Now, I'm always going to pay attention to Rough Rider football. I have friends on the team and in the organization still, so I'm going to be rooting for them, as I did at the game, watching them closely. But I went to that game to watch my son play, who got drafted by the Bombers in the 6th round, and I was hoping to watch him play. I hadn't seen him play to this point except for some video that he has sent me with his, I said, hey, let me see some of your plays in practice. And by all accounts, watching that and hearing from Richie Hall, the former Rider legend, if you're following me on social media, who I ran into at the game, and just some of the conversations Ethan's been having with people. He's been having a great camp, and I was hoping that I'd get to watch him at a preseason game. So we bought 5, 6 tickets, and we're going to watch the game, and then he ends up injuring his pinky finger, and you'll think, well, it's just a finger. You can tape that up and play. Normally you can, but they wanted to limit the damage and not turn it into a surgery type of situation, so they put a cast on him, and he's out 2 weeks, so he doesn't get to play in that game or the one here in Regina, which is kind of a bummer. And it's also a bummer because he's a no-name trying to make a CFL roster, so you'd like to play in the preseason. So the Ball family sits on pins and needles to see after Saturday if he hangs around with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But I still went to the game with a couple of buddies, and I have to say it was an interesting perspective. I love what they got going on there in Winnipeg. Immediately, like right around this, to get into parking there, boom, no problem. And believe it or not, you're allowed to park around the stadium. And they've got parking lots. People there directing you. From the time we got out of the truck to the time we walked up to the Bud Grant statue, which is right by the Blue Bomber store, which is right by the entrance we had to go into, it was 5 minutes, tops. And we walked by a whole bunch of tailgating. Imagine that. A beautiful Saturday afternoon. And that, folks, is the first time in my life I think I've been to Winnipeg where it's been nice. Not true. The preseason game of the last year I was doing the games, it was a nice day. But there haven't been too many nice weather days that I've gone to Winnipeg because we usually go later in the season or I'm there in the winter. So it was a nice day. Walked up to the stadium. They got the streets lined with Blue Bomber players on flags on the posts. Why can't we do that in Saskatchewan? Why can't we have that down Dudney or down Sass Drive or Sass Drive, I guess, or maybe Albert Street over the bridge there on game day? Why can't we hang rider flags or player flags? They do a really good job of promoting their players. Zach Collaros, they had a game in the concourse, and Zach Collaros kind of mannequin. Zach Collaros on the window of the Bomber store. I don't know if the Riders have something like that. I'm not saying, I can't remember if they do or they don't. Honestly, I haven't been around the stadium. I've only been to the stadium once in the last couple of years, and that was to call a Thunder game against the Hilltops. So I get to the security checkpoint. They wave me in. They wave us in and they go it. Actually, to start, they didn't even charge me for parking. I said, I'm from Saskatchewan. They're like, oh no, but I'm here to root for the Blue Bombers. Didn't tell them why. They're like, you're in. Didn't pay for parking. So that was a good first impression. Get to the, walk by all the tailgating, get to the front. Looks like got a big blow up Bomber football player. Look, music's pumping, DJ's there, which the Riders have the party in the park. I get it. But, everything's like pumping and hopping. Walk in, boom, in literally 30 seconds. Weep, jeep. I'm through the door, ready to go buy some Bomber memorabilia, get myself a drink, a hot dog, or whatever I want to do. Look at the field as they warm up. As the voice of the Riders, and actually my cousin works security at the Rider games, Jenny, or she used to. As the voice of the Riders, they still would go through my bag. It would still take 4 minutes. I'm the same guy every week. And I get there's protocol, but I'll tell you what, when you're only having 19,000 tickets sold so far for your home opener, the regular season home opener, not the preseason, there's an issue there. There's an issue there. You got to make it fun and carefree while still keeping safety. So my first impressions of Winnipeg, Princess Auto Stadium, all of it, pretty good. I would say it's nip and tuck with the Riders for the best facility. I might give the edge to Mosaic Stadium, but Winnipeg has a lot going for it in terms of the stadium, the atmosphere. It is louder than Mosaic Stadium. It's absolutely louder than Mosaic Stadium. And that's not a shot at Rider fans. It's just the way it's built. That canopy over the top on either side keeps the sound in. I would like to see them have a bigger scoreboard at the one end, just like Mosaic have a big scoreboard at one end, and at Mosaic in the northeast corner, they have that scoreboard. Well, they have two subsequent or same type of scoreboards at either end at Princess Auto Stadium. It's more pole than scoreboard, actually. So that's my only criticism there. But yeah, saw Richie Hall. It was a field goal fest, but it was nice to just sit up there as a fan and watch the game. And now I there's a guy on Brother, as he calls himself, Brother Sasko. He's on X, and he's apparently trading my rights to the Bombers for me and pizza, or to the Bombers for pierogies and a shirtless pic of Chris Walby. They're having a little fun with the rivalry. I tell you what, they have something going on there in Winnipeg. Not only the culture of the team, which I have a son playing, so he's filling me in on just what a well-run organization it is, at least from his standpoint 12 days in, to what they got going in and around the stadium. This feels a lot like the Riders were under Jim Hobson back in 2000, what was it? The golden age from 2006 to 2014 when he was done, when they went on all those Grey Cup runs and won a couple of Grey Cups. That's what it feels like in Winnipeg right now. It's the hip thing to do. And I'll tell you what, Bomber Nation and Rider Nation are neck and neck. They're both equally passionate. They both buy the memorabilia. They're both into the games. I wouldn't say one fan base is better than the other right now. Both fan bases have had, the Bombers weren't good for a while. Before Mike O'Shea got there, they were really struggling there. In the 90s and the early 2000s. I know they went to the Grey Cup in 2001 with a 14-4 team, but they were struggling off and on and struggling at the gate, where the Riders were picking up steam and owning the Blue Bombers. Now the Riders can't buy a win in Winnipeg, and the fans are in full throat. It's loud, and fans here have kind of tapered off a bit. And I think that's why the Saskatchewan Roughriders have to win this. They have to get past the Blue Bombers, and they have to host the West in the Grey Cup in Winnipeg's backyard. That's what they have to do. Otherwise, it's a failed season. Just some comments on the game. Kickers were on point. I actually thought the Riders' special teams was slightly more physical than the Bombers' special teams and slightly more buttoned up that way. Otherwise, it was kind of a soft in the game. Those two injuries on the Riders' offensive line are going to hurt. Gagnon and Sean McEwen. They're going to hurt. Riders didn't really move anybody around. There wasn't a lot of push there with that first unit. Ouellette had one nice run where he hurdled a guy. That's really all they had for a ground game. Pocket collapsed a couple of times. Jake Mayer, little off. I wouldn't worry about Jake. I think he'll be okay. Trevor Harris was okay. Kalaros was probably the best quarterback of any quarterback on the field in that game that day for his brief appearance. Terry Wilson looked pretty good. Chris Strevler is Chris Strevler. He's big. He can fire it. Still working. I don't know if working's the right way. He still has trouble with his accuracy, his consistency. And then I like the McRae kid who's a returner, but if you're going to supplant Mario Alford, and he very well might. I'm talking 86, McRae for the Riders. He looked pretty good on return team. And but if you're going to do that, if you get a pass on the sidelines by your bench in front of the coaches, you got to make that catch. That was a catchable ball on the sidelines for 86. That'd be my only critique. You got to show me some dynamic versatility if you're going to make this team and supplant the veteran Mario Alford, who is 34 years old. It's like a fine wine. But when it comes down to wages, who knows? They may go in a different direction, the Riders. Also, out with a hamstring was Nelson Lacombo. Jackson Ford, the grandson of Al Ford, the former Rider, great player and general manager, guy who's also helped other teams in the league, Al Ford, that is. Jackson Ford going into his third season, he came to play in that game. He was noticeable. 21 in the first half, was flying around, making tackles around the ball, trying to solidify his spot on the roster, but maybe even steal the starting job from Nelson Lacombo. It's going to make this game on Friday at Mosaic very interesting. We're going to see a lot of the rookies come from Winnipeg. They're not planning to bring, I don't think, many veteran guys. At least I'd be surprised if they did. They played a lot of their guys in this game. So you'll see the Lane Novaks come to town, those kind of guys. So nice to see Novak play. Daniel Weeb play. Novak for the Bombers. Daniel Weeb, the U of S Husky, Weston Dressler type for the Riders. Noah Zer, who was cut earlier in camp. And Zer, is it Zer? I don't know. Anyway, it's like Edom or Edom. Anyway, Zer playing on the offensive line, fighting through a bit of a leg injury there during the game. Gutted it out. And I thought it's interesting, too, just looking at the other thing I liked about Winnipeg, when you walk in, they hand you a game day, not a program, but like a sleeve with the names, and I think there's even a barcode for 50-50. I don't know if the Riders do that. Once again, I haven't been to a Rider game as a fan in years. So I don't know if they do that for game day. I've always been a pre- and a post-game show host or a play-by-play guy. Didn't step foot into the stadium last year for a CFL game. Plan to do it at least once this year to watch the Labor Day Classic. But yeah, they hand out those sleeves. So I'm looking on the roster. 6 Regina area kids on the Bomber roster right now. Neufeld's a shoo-in. Ethan Vibert, the offensive lineman from Miller who went to South Dakota State. He played guard and center, and from what I could tell, not being an offensive lineman aficionado, but sitting up in section 231, way up top there to see the whole field, Ethan Vibert, number 62, looked pretty good. He's a lock to make the team. So you got Neufeld and Vibert, and you got Schmeckel from Riffle, and you got Ethan Ball from Riffle, and you got Lane Novak on the team, and Josh Haggerty who's trying to make the team. 6 Regina and area kids on the Blue Bombers right now as we speak, which is cool. Prairie guys stealing from Regina, getting more of that rivalry going. All right. We are going to hear now from one of my favorite guests coming up here. He's going to be a regular. He is a regular. The X's and Argos podcast and color commentator on the Toronto Argonauts broadcast network. That would be our friend Ben Grant. He will join us coming up here. This is Ballsy Uncut. Well, Ben, you had a holiday in Paris. I've never been. What'd you like about Paris?
I love France. I actually spent a lot of time there as a child. I lived in Aix-en-Provence and Nice and Marseille and a little bit in Paris. So it's a little bit like going back home in a way. But yeah, awesome. Highly recommend though, if not so much Paris, get up to Normandy, the D-Day beaches, Juno Beach. It is breathtaking, and that's if anywhere in France for a Canadian, you got to go to Juno Beach. It's like nothing else.
Yeah, so what's that like? Just the history and everything when you get there. That's a weird way to put it. Can you feel it?
Yeah, it's chilling, right? Like they still like to this day, they still have the occasional like gas mask that will wash up on shore. Like it is, it's this beautiful like picturesque beach, but of course there's, out of respect, there's no one like tanning or swimming. It's not like that. Well, you wouldn't want to swim in those waters anyway, but it is left out of respect for the Canadian soldiers that fell that day. And they've still got these preserved German bunkers underneath the beaches, some that they've just discovered fairly recently. They didn't even know were there. The most recent one, there was like a Yorkshire Terrier that got lost on the beach. They found that it had fallen into what turned out to be this command center, and they excavated it, and you can actually go in and see it. It's pretty wild. But for anyone who hasn't been, it is something.
So another question. I like learning new things. So you grew up as a young kid there. What did your parents do that you grew up there?
Well, I was born in Toronto, but I spent a lot of my childhood there. My parents went to study over there and learn French. They took some time to basically return to being students, and that's what afforded me the opportunity to grow up speaking French. And so my French was actually better than my English until about 7 or 8 years old, I'd say.
Oh wow. So what are your parents like? What did your parents do? Like what were they?
They were both in education, but they had taken sort of a leave and were in a position where they were both able to do that. And so they're like, yeah, let's do this now while we can.
Okay, let's talk some CFL football now that
Let's
we
do
did a
it.
little history. You are an interesting man, my friend. Okay, Argos threw a Grey Cup. They win it with Nick Arbuckle. He doesn't sign right away, but gets signed. Just, I don't know if you've been around camp, if you've seen much of it, but just your thoughts so far and how the Argos look here going into the preseason and as we head to 2025.
Well, the offense is pretty much the same. Like there's some question marks because we don't know about Chad Kelly. Coach Dinwiddie has said 50-50 for week one. I would, without knowing, obviously he knows way better than me. I feel like that's got to be less just because wouldn't you take more precautions? Like he's so important to this team. I think if you're not sure, if you're not 100%, you got to sit him. And if that means like 1 or 2 weeks just to be positive, he's in good health, then I think you do that. And so I would still at this point be surprised if he suits up week one because we didn't see him out there for the double blue scrimmage. It was Arbuckle and Dukes and Horn, the new kid they've brought in. So I don't know. But aside from that, the offense looks the same. It's pretty much all the same pieces. The defense is pretty new, and that's where the defensive line, especially, it's a lot of Saskatchewan guys that you're very familiar with. You've got Lanier and Christmas and Cox. It's a reunion here in Toronto, so we'll see who makes it out there. It's a very different looking defensive line because they lost like $1 million worth of players to the Edmonton Elks.
Yeah, that's right. So the Argos trying to get some more interest in terms of ticket sales, offering different deals. How has the excitement been after the surprise Grey Cup victory?
It's pretty good, actually. The feel is good right now, and I think the city needs it. There is has a little bit of a depression here right now, as you can imagine, after that Florida Leafs series. Not that we're not used to that, but I think people are ready to cheer on a winner, and there's been no bigger winner in Toronto over the last few years than the Argonauts. So there's a lot of optimism heading into this season, saying, hey, we got a winner here. Let's get behind them.
What other storylines or things interest you in the Eastern Division of the CFL?
That's a good question. The East, I think, is going to be really competitive. Like, if you try and, my son and I sat down yesterday to kind of go through, like, what do we think everyone's records are going to be? And I really don't know. I think all four teams could make the playoffs, but all four teams could have trouble too. It depends on what goes on. Like, you look at Toronto, and there's some question marks on the defense. Obviously, Hamilton, I think, has those same defensive questions. And are they going to have the same Bo Levi Mitchell they had last year when he had that heck of a season? In Montreal, they're putting a lot of faith in Davis Alexander. Is that, have we seen enough to do that yet? And Ottawa, I think, has some question marks as they have for the last couple of years. Although I think they're on the rise. how far up have they come, and what's that defense going to look like too? I think there's question marks for all four teams, but I think each fan base has legitimate reasons to be excited about their team in the East.
Now, in the West, it's Winnipeg's title to lose, and rightfully so. But if I was ranking, and I picked Saskatchewan first. I think the Riders have the best team on paper, or at least they did until the last week or so when Sean McEwen goes down. And, of course, the lineman coming from Gagnon from Montreal. Looks like those could be season enders, or at least most of the season. So that puts a little chink in the armor, so to speak.
Yeah, that's the concern. Like I was with you. Like I saw the Riders coming out of the West. I think again it's going to be tight. It's not just like they're going to walk away. Winnipeg's going to put up a fight. We'll see see what Edmonton can do. They've got so many new pieces, but like on paper they're pretty good. So that could be fun. But I do think that it hurts a lot. O-line is so important. O-line and quarterback, like it's just hard to find those guys. They'll do their best, and they've been through it. Like that Saskatchewan team, it knows all there is to know about O-line injuries. So, they'll see what they can put together. But yeah, I like their quarterback crew there, and I think they have the tools in place, and they are certainly due. So will this be their year? We'll have to see. They need to stop getting hurt for one, and that'll help.
Who's got more pressure? Corey Mace in his second year, because let's be honest, a home playoff game and a loss in the West Final doesn't cut it anymore. Like, you got to get to a Grey Cup, okay? Sorry, he's not. He's nicely there, but sometimes you also get the past heaped on you, okay? So is it Corey Mace? Is it Dave Dickinson, whose team the last couple of years has not been good and missed the playoffs? And let's be honest, probably should have missed the year before, but the Riders soiled the sheets down the stretch. Or is it Mark Killam? Now, Mark's new, so Buck's new too, but I'll leave him out, and I'll leave Mike O'Shea out because Mike O'Shea's been to 5 Grey Cups in a row.
He's not feeling any pressure.
Yeah, no. And I don't think Buck Pierce is. And Mark Killam maybe shouldn't either, except I think Edmonton, with all the money they spent, they have to win. They have to be a playoff team. That's what I think. Those 3 coaches under the most heat. Who would you give the hottest seat to there? And we're not firing anybody on this show because I don't do that, but whose seat might be the hottest?
I think Dickinson, and I think it's simply because everyone else is relatively new, right? Like, and Mace, I know there's a lot of pressure because it's Saskatchewan. The expectations are high always. But I just can't see, like, even if the Riders struggle this year, I don't think he's a good coach. And I think everyone knows that. I think the fans know that. I think the organization knows that. And if the team struggles again, I don't think it's going to be because of the coaching. And I think that people will be able to see that. So, next year, it's a whole different story. The pressure is going to keep mounting. And like you're saying, Killam in Edmonton, he's got a grace period because he's brand new, even with that expensive roster they've brought in. You're not going to feel pressure year one that way. The CFL just isn't really like that. And same thing in BC. Like there's so many moving parts, and you've got new pieces in there too. So I think it's going to be on Dickinson because he's the only one that hasn't changed. And we all know they've struggled, especially last year. And so there's going to be a lot of pressure on Calgary to perform. I think they're going to be. I know almost everybody I've talked to has them picked dead last. And I don't see that for Calgary. I think they're going to be a far more competitive team than most people are giving them credit for.
Okay, so I ranked my quarterback rooms. Now, this is different than actual quarterbacks, okay? That it would be different, okay? I had Calgary at 9 only because PJ Walker and whoever they put there as the third stringer, unproven. I had Drew Brown, if they go with Adams, and Crum at 8. I think I had at the top. I think I had Edmonton at 7. At 6, I had.
I think you have Montreal at 6.
Montreal at 6. 5, I had the Hamilton Tiger Cats. 4, I had the BC Lions. 3, the Bombers. Only because Strevler he's a great athlete. I don't know how great he is a passer of the football. Just being honest. I guess Terry Wilson's had a good camp. And then, of course, Zach Claros just signed on the dotted line again, and he's a 2-time MOP. And then I got Toronto 2 and Saskatchewan 1. Overall, how would you rank your quarterbacking room? That doesn't mean, like I said, you could say Zach Claros is the best quarterback, but not necessarily is the room the strongest.
Yeah, that's what makes it so tough. I like this exercise. I think it's a great bar debate to kind of go through this.
Exactly.
Because if it's just straight up number ones, then this list is going to look very different probably. But yeah, the quarterback room, Saskatchewan, I think you're onto something there in the fact that you've got two starting quarterbacks basically in Mayer and Harris. And so that has to, and I don't know that anyone else really does. You've got some guys that have started. Obviously, Arbuckle has been a starter, and we've seen starts out of like, even Powell and stuff like that. But I think that certainly elevates the room. And then Tommy Stevens, while I don't love him as like the go-to guy, we know how big a role player he can be too. So I do think that's a really strong room. I think Toronto's right there with them. I think I would have them 1-2. I think depending like with Chad Kelly's current health status, not a little bit up in the air.
Yeah.
I think you have to give Saskatchewan the nod there just because we don't know. If Chad Kelly's healthy, I think I'd probably put Toronto number 1 because I like Arbuckle. He's a Grey Cup MVP. I like Dukes. And Arbuckle, I know people kind of scoff sometimes because they've seen Arbuckle play poorly, but not under Coach Dinwiddie, they haven't. Like that pairing, for whatever reason, works really well. And so Kelly, Arbuckle, Dukes, who has his own little magic that he's able to perform. He's been a starter too. So I like that. I like that QB room. And then the rest of your guys, I like there's some great starters that just have unproven backups. And we've got question marks in Montreal, like you said, like that. Like I like McLeod Bethel Thompson, but it looks like they're going to be going with, a guy that I just don't know enough about. I've got one season of, watching Alexander. And so we'll
let
see
me
how
stop
that goes.
you there. So let
Yeah.
me stop you there. Just kind of to talk about this list. Who's in a better spot? Montreal, like who are you more comfortable with when you're looking at Davis Alexander with McLeod Bethel Thompson, or is it Trey Ford with Cody Fajardo?
I'm more comfortable with Fajardo and Ford. I would have had Edmonton a little higher than you.
Yeah.
I like Trey Ford a lot. I had the probably misfortune of having coached against Trey Ford as well and his brother, and that was memorable to say the least. And I've been a big fan of his ever since then. And I think he has what it takes to be a legitimate starter. And to have your backup is like, I don't know what more like Fajardo has to do. But it just seems like people are so quick to push him aside. And he's won some huge games. He's won a Grey Cup. He's well, we're talking about, multiple successes, and he's the backup. And that's a really strong room too. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how long it stays in place. I think one of the difficult situations they've got in Edmonton is that the old adage, sometimes when you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And you worry a little bit about that. We saw that with McLeod Bethel Thompson and Ford in Edmonton too. It's so tempting to put in the savvy vet, the guy with all the experience. As an offensive coordinator, you're sitting there in camp and in practice, you're like, man, this guy makes all the right reads. He's getting guys in the right place. Like, it's so tempting just to put the vet in. But we'll see how good they are at sticking with their plan. But I'm excited about Edmonton's team.
Big money plays, though. So Ford's got a contract, Davis Alexander's got a contract, and they've got the keys to the kingdom. So I'm sure they'll both have a bit of a leash there. Okay, so who's got a better chance of turning it around? Turning it around's a wrong way to put it. So Bo Levi Mitchell did turn it around last year. Who's got a better chance for success this year, do you think? Bo Levi Mitchell with the additions on offense like Kenny Lawler, Drew Wolotarski and the gang? Or is it Nathan Rourke? Because Nathan was here for a brief spell when he was a shooting star, then went to the NFL, and I believe a lot of his problems last year was the NFL hangover we see from a lot of guys. They're chasing their dream, and then they come back, and you're just human. You're just human. So who do you think has a better year? Nathan Rourke or Bo Levi Mitchell? And
I'm going to put an asterisk next to this, which I know you hate, but I have to answer kind of both. So I think Nathan Rourke, I really believe he is at this moment the better quarterback between the two. I expect more from Bo Levi Mitchell this year because I think the pieces around him are better. I quite like Hamilton's offense. I love the addition of Lawler especially. And I think the O-line is going to protect him a little bit better. I worry about that O-line in BC. And I know they got a little bit banged up too in their preseason game. So I think there's some more question marks there. I love Rourke as a quarterback, but you can't just do it on your own. So we'll see. He's lost some weapons. He's lost a little bit of that O-line that he had when he was so great, when he looked unstoppable. But I do think he'll have a better season. Like, you're right. Like, trying to have, he's got like 7 different playbooks in his head, and he was trying to make things work. It's so tough just to jump right in there and expect to be at that same level.
Okay, before I let you go, last time we talked in person was at the Combine here in Regina, and I know you love scouting. You love watching the talent. You love evaluating the talent. just in your time going to the combine, like how much, like I've been to the combine a couple years ago or a few years ago when it was CFL week. And so I got to see it up close and haven't been to one since. Watched a couple of them streaming. Of course, this year's wasn't streamed, but just being there, I was just amazed at, like, there wasn't a bad player on that football field. They were all good players. Just your thoughts on the development of the Canadian talent over the years and from going to the combine like you have.
Yeah, it always amazes me because I think we forget sometimes. I think, with the ratio in the CFL, I think people often have this temptation to think of Canadian athletes as lesser in a lot of ways, and I think we think of Canadian athletes as, hard to come by. And the thing is, there are so many amazing U Sports athletes and NCAA athletes with Canadian birth and Canadian citizenship. Like it boggles my mind every time we're down there because you're looking at guys and you're like, this guy, and you get up close to some of those guys too, and the size of them, the speed they're moving at, and you're like, this guy's probably going to be like a 7th-round pick, and this guy's a star. This guy's been a star his whole life, and he might go in the 7th round. That it always impresses me, never ceases to, and I think that's something that I would love for every fan to get the opportunity to go and watch a combine whenever it's in their, whenever their host city is. It is, I guess, an option for them because it will amaze you. It will impress you so much as to the level of talent. Even guys that don't get drafted, these are high caliber athletes and they can play with anyone.
Last question. The NFL has agreed to allow their players to compete in the 2028 Olympic Games. Regina, where I sit right now, home to probably the best youth flag football league. It was honored by the NFL last year. Talking to Mike Thomas here recently on an installment, and just what they've done from 75 kids to 3,500 kids in 18 years. I hope the CFL is open-minded enough to let our players compete. I know it's in the heart of our season, July 14th through the 30th, like it is right in the meat and potatoes, but it would go a long way to getting rid of the perception that these guys can't compete. They're not, like, you know what I'm saying? I sure hope we allow our Canadian athletes, whether they're, from the NFL or in the CFL, to compete at these games.
Yeah, I'm of two minds on this because I want them to be able to, and I hope the CFL does say, yeah, of course. I'm not sure how many guys, even in the NFL, deserve a spot on national flag football teams. It's a very different sport. I just came, spending last week, my daughter playing quarterback for Team Ontario, U14, brought home the national championship, which was awesome. But but that's like I've coached football for over 20 years, and her coaches would coach circles around me in flag. It's such a different game. It's not the same as just saying, NBA basketball and Olympic basketball. Like, of course, those NBA players should go and play Olympic basketball and they're going to be the starters. Flag football, it's not like it's different enough that it's like, rugby or soccer or something, but it is a different sport. And these guys with their body types aren't necessarily in the best position to be the best athletes. Like you look at the quarterback for Team USA, for example, he's a 5'7", like 125-pound guy. He might beat out like Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson because it's just a different style. It's a different sport. And so that's the thing we have to be wary of. And so if we don't see CFL players on Team Canada, it's not going to be because they're not great athletes. They are, but the sport is not quite the same. There's a lot of transferable skill, but it is different. And those are small rosters too. You're talking about like 10-player rosters where you're going to have guys playing both ways. You have to really have exceptional athletes. And those smaller guys with that agility where they don't necessarily need to be built for contact, they tend to have advantages.
Thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Love talking football with you.